have a question for you all. Has the question, is there such a thing as an objective reality, ever crossed your mind? If yes, then stay on, because I have a lot of insights to share, a lot of research I have found in the last 2 or 3 years in reading the many books I've read and just looking up for answers on this question. I have gathered a lot of information and I am eagerly waiting to share that with you.
Seeking truth and finding right, learning every day and night, growing strong and standing tall, unfolding as we embrace it all. Seeking, learning, growing, evolving.
Hey thinkers! How are you all doing today? I hope you're all doing very well, and I hope the weather outside is as good as it is for me here in Vancouver today. It's sun on a January. It's kind of rare, so I'm making the best of it by shooting the video during the day hours. Now, you and I experience the world using our 5 senses. Most of us, at least, have 5 senses, but there are also some amongst us who may not have all the 5 senses. Not everyone can see, touch, hear, taste, smell all at the same time. Some of us don't have some of these senses. So that in itself, we can establish as a starting point that not all of us perceive reality the exact same way. How I probably experience this video that I'm creating is vastly different from how someone who's blind experiences this video. They may not even associate anything to do with my body language, my facial expressions, nothing. But all they focus on is the content of my message, the audio aspect of this message. The way they experience this video is going to be different from how you, or maybe I, experience this video. Now, someone who is deaf might experience this video with mostly the transcript below, the captions below, or my facial expressions, my body language, etc. So clearly there in itself, the experience of this physical reality is different for people amongst us. But we're not the only beings on earth, are we? There are other beings on earth. The question is, can they also experience reality the same way as us? And the answer is, most of us probably already know, is no. But let me give you some examples there just to expand on that topic. There's a certain type of fish called as Mexican tetra fish. And there are 2 types of fish, Mexican tetra fishes. Like some of these Mexican tetra fishes live on the surface of the water. Some live deep down in like dark areas. They're called cave-dwelling fishes. Now, the Mexican tetra fishes that live on the surface have eyes. They can perceive through vision. Whereas the Mexican tetra fishes that live deep down have no eyes. They cannot perceive through vision at all. These fishes have adapted to the environment in which they live. And so the ones that dwell deep down in the dark waters have adapted to the fact that they do not need to perceive light because there is no light that is reaching down to the waters below. And so in their reality, darkness is what's reality. Whereas the reality of the Mexican tetra fishes that dwell on the surface of the water, their reality is that there is light, that they can perceive what's around. There in itself, even the species of a certain type, like a Mexican tetra fish, cannot agree on reality at all. Now, we all also probably already know about how various animals perceive differently, right? We've all heard about elephants that can perceive infrasound that we humans cannot perceive. And infrasound is, the range of infrasound that elephants perceive is vastly below the range that most humans perceive. We've also heard about bats, for instance, who heavily rely on echolocation, which is essentially them sending out high-pitched sounds. And when those sounds reach a certain object at a surface, they reflect back as vibrations, and that feedback coming back is what they use to make a map out of their surroundings. They make a 3D map of what their surroundings are based on that feedback from those high-pitched sounds. We humans don't do that. And probably the map that they create of the surroundings might be vastly different from the maps we create with our perception, or even from the satellites that we've sent to space to create maps for us. So all of these points are to say that we are pretty limited in our perception. We aren't perceiving reality, all of reality, at any given point of time. We're pretty limited in how much we are perceiving or what we are actually perceiving. You may have heard about some people that are tetrachromats. If you haven't, here's what tetrachromats can perceive. Most of us as humans have what's called as trichromatic lenses, and having trichromatic lenses allows us to perceive up to 1 million colors. A tetrachromatic person, on the other hand, has the ability to view 100 million colors, unlike us. So some of the color ranges that they see, we won't even know what it is. We don't even know what that color looks like. So when you think about that, who do you think is perceiving reality more closer to reality? And who is likely not perceiving the real reality at any given point? The trichromats or the tetrachromats? Or take, for example, synesthetes. So amongst us humans, there are some that have a condition called as synesthesia. Now, you may look at those with synesthesia and call them abnormal or call them as an anomaly or whatever. But when you look at how they view the world, you might start to question what reality really is. Because for some of them, when they hear music, they see colors. Like, unlike you and I, like when we hear music, we don't associate the music with any sort of color perception, do we? No. But some synesthetes do perceive colors when they hear certain musical tones. And some of them even see colors when they see certain numbers or certain alphabets. For instance, a number 5, a digit 5 that they see could, show as with a color hue on it. And if you think this is them having sort of skewed perception or like abnormal perception or whatever, because of some brain wiring and something that's not right, are you sure? Are you sure that the wiring in their brain is not right? Or could it be possible that maybe your wiring is limited? How do you know what the truth is? And did you also know that there are humans amongst us who have a condition called as aphakia, and they can perceive UV, like ultraviolet light, that most of us humans cannot perceive because it's beyond our visible range. Who's to say that they are perceiving reality better, or if we are perceiving reality better? Now, if you have a dog at home, you probably know that they can smell things that you cannot, and through that smell perception, they can catch things which we cannot. We know that dogs are able to perceive or can detect cancer, but clearly you and I cannot just see a person or smell them and detect cancer, can we? If we could, that would solve so many people from dying from cancer, but we cannot. So clearly we are limited in our ability to perceive reality, isn't it? Now, if you ask a particle physicist, he'll say that anything you're perceiving as an object, a full physical object, isn't fully physically an object at all. It isn't fully made up of matter, is what they will all tell you. Why? Because we all know every object is made up of atoms. Most objects, like for instance, I'm made up of a collection of cells. Each cell is made up of molecules, and every molecule is made up of various atoms, like hydrogen atom and oxygen atom, etc. What are atoms made up of ultimately, and what constitutes an atom? If you ask a particle physicist, they will tell you that atoms are mostly empty, 99.999 something percentage empty. Only 0.000 something percentage is made up of, every atom is made up of physical matter. if that's the case, if I'm mostly a collection of atoms, should I not be 99.999% whatever empty space? Why then do you and I perceive me as a physical object, fully occupying the space of 5 feet 7 inches and whatever dimensions I occupy in this space? Now, the way a particle physicist will explain that away to you is this. When you see a fan with 3 blades, not switched on, just standing there idle, you will notice that there is a lot of empty space between each of those blades. You would dare to put your hand between those blades and you'll be fine. You know you'll be fine. But switch on the fan. Would you put your finger in between those blades? Would you try even putting your finger in between those blades? No, you will not, because you don't know where the empty space is anymore. Because the fan blades are moving so fast that it appears as if the blades are all over that space all at the same time, and you don't know where the empty space is anymore. And so similarly, in an atom, the electrons are moving so fast in the atom that they are occupying all of that empty space all at the same time. It seems, at least, that is the case. And that's probably why when we look at physical objects, we're not seeing those electrons in motion. We're just seeing the fact that it's occupying all of that empty space, appearing as if there is like a physical object all around the atom. And therefore, you and I view each other as 2 like physical objects, and we are able to describe each other's boundaries of our body based on that. Interesting, isn't it? That what we're actually perceiving is not really true. Like, we can tell that about a fan when we see a fan, that even though it appears like they are occupying all of that entire space, it is not actually the case. It's just the fact that the blades are moving so fast that it appears that way. But we know for a fact that there is, at any given point, empty space when those blades are moving. And still, we take this for granted, that everything in reality is real. Is it? But then you might ask, sure, the electrons are occupying all of that space in the atom, and so therefore gives us this perception, the visual perception, that we are fully solid or fully made up of physical matter. But just like with the case of fans, when you approach it, you know there is movement there, and therefore you feel those waves of the movement there, right? So when I probably shake hands with you, in that case, I should probably experience the waves or like that movement of those electrons. Why do I not experience that? Why is it that when I shake my hands with you, it appears as if 2 solid, stable objects are shaking hands? Now, if you ask a question like that, a scientist might respond to you this way. It's like this. 2 magnets with opposite poles facing each other create a repellent force. We know that. If the magnets are powerful enough, a point will come when you cannot push them together until they touch, right? Like two magnets with repellent forces, when you try to get them together, you cannot push them beyond a certain point. The repelling force between these magnets will keep them apart. From our perspective, when we see this gap between the magnets, it appears as if there is empty space between the magnets. But from the magnet's perspective, the air between feels solid. And likewise, when you and I shake hands, we're experiencing 2 electromagnetic fields coming into contact with each other, which gives the impression of solidity when we touch each other. Doesn't it make you think that this is probably why Albert Einstein once said, reality is merely an illusion, although a very persistent one. Now, when you think about it from a biological perspective. We're made up of close to 32.7 trillion cells, each of us, of which about 330 billion cells are replaced daily, which is an equivalent to about 1% of our cells. In about 80 to 100 days, 30 trillion cells in our body would have probably been replaced, with new cells replacing them every 80 to 100 days. By that count, every 80 to 100 days, the cells that once existed 3 months ago are no longer in us anymore. We're not even the same person walking and talking and moving that we were 3 months ago. None of those cells exist in our body that existed 100 days before. So is the case with any other physical object you perceive, right? What you see at any given point is just what it is in that moment. It is not a permanent or an objective reality. Philosophers, we know, have questioned this for a very, very long time. And even a lot of these religions that is based on philosophical thought have also questioned this. For instance, Vedanta has often referred to reality as Maya, or an illusion. Buddhism too also teaches about the impermanence or the ever-changing quality of reality. Even certain scientists like Donald Hoffman, he's written a whole book about this very question. And a lot of the stuff I've actually spoken about today has been taken from his book. But he proposes in his books that our brains perceive reality as it is simply for survival, not for anything else. But we should not make the mistake of believing that everything we perceive is real, because it's not. It's just the way we perceive what we perceive is just required for us, Kruti, this human body, to exist and continue to survive. Beyond that, there is really actually no use of this perception, because what we are perceiving is probably a really small part of reality, or not the entire truth at any given point. Of course, now this does bring up one movie to most of our memories, The Matrix. And I know a lot of the technology innovations that are happening now is also probably reminding us of the possibility that we could all maybe be driven by some smart codes, right? Like, who knows that whatever is happening in this reality that we are perceiving is probably all coded. There's an algorithm that's running behind that none of us have any idea about. Who knows? Have you experienced virtual reality? Gaming? A lot many of you might have, right? And you know that when you are within that virtual reality, it feels very real in there. You will not for a minute question what's real and what's not within that virtual reality, because you will accept that that virtual reality is your reality in that moment for as long as you're in the VR. So I think, and this is of course a borrowed idea from Donald Hoffman's book, we are actually wearing VR headsets, and these VR headsets are differently tuned for each of us. And the tuning is really just necessary for survival, but we shouldn't make the mistake of believing that the tuning to our VR is giving us a full view of the world as it is. And why is that an important perspective to have? It's important because we often go around walking this world believing in everything we see. But if you are seeking truth, if you are seeking answers in this existence, having this perspective in mind is going to help you get closer to truth. If you don't have this perspective in mind, and if you go around the world believing that everything you're perceiving is true, you will not get to truth at all. Because clearly we aren't perceiving truth at any given point of time. I hope this video has been insightful to you and has made you think about this. And if you're wondering and if you're looking for more answers, I have book recommendations for you. Number one is this book called Metahuman, written by Deepak Chopra. And I also have one other book recommendation. It's a book by Donald Hoffman. It's called The Case Against Reality. I hope you'll go seeking, and I hope you'll continue to find answers to the questions we've not been able to answer in this video. And if you have anything more to add to the insights shared or to the perspective shared in this video, please feel free to add to the comments below. And if you have disagreements with any of the points shared, or if you think you can correct me on any of the points shared so our audience can have a better understanding of these insights, please, please, please add it in the comments. The goal of this video is to make sure that we feel enriched and enlightened about information. So I want to make sure that the information reaches our audience with as much clarity as possible. So anything you can do to enhance that clarity, add to this discussion in the comments below. It'll help all of us. Thank you and happy seeking.